Sawadee Cup, hello and welcome to another Victor Black Masterclass video. In this video, I am about to flip a few people's minds here. I'll be very honest with you. I have debated whether it is worthy of my time to even attempt to make this video due to the controversial nature of the subject matter. There are a great many people in our tribe that are under the belief that DHT-based derivatives are significantly contributory towards hair loss. And I am going to make what I completely understand. I know this going in, right? This is going to be a video that is going to be controversial. There's going to be a lot of bros out there that just, will not be able to get their mind around what we're going to discuss here. But I think I need to make this content because it is evidence-based, right? So let's begin this video with understanding a couple of things. One is that there is a very good argument to be made that the hormone Nandrolone is very plausibly what we would describe as a hair-friendly steroid. And the reason behind that is that when Nandrolone interacts with the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, the process whereby testosterone is converted to DHT and we see an increase in potential androgenic impacts. In other words, DHT is considered to be more androgenic than testosterone. So the testosterone molecule interacts with the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. There is a process that then takes place that converts testosterone to DHT. DHT has it's widely accepted that it has a higher androgenic rating than testosterone. So the virtue of testosterone acting or being acted upon rather by 5-alpha reductase results in an increase in potential androgenicity, and potentially we could say, you could make an argument that at some point in the hair loss cascade, this is potentially deleterious to outcome. I have no problem. Anyone that's actually listened to my content, when I talk about hair loss, it's fair to say that DHT is potentially a hair growth promoter. DHT is potentially a hair loss accelerant. Which pathway it takes is determined by a number of preconditions that the hair follicle is exposed to. But it's also a fair argument to say, look, because Nandrolone, when it is acted upon by 5-alpha reductase, effectively becomes a molecule called 19-nor hydrotestosterone, sorry. So dihydrotestosterone is the conversion from testosterone to DHT. 19-nor dihydrotestosterone is the basically conversion of Nandrolone, okay? So that molecule becomes effectively less androgenic. Now, it's never been shown, it's never been demonstrated in clinical evidence, but it's a fair assumption, I also assume, that because we acknowledge that the new molecule formed by the reduction of Nandrolone via 5-alpha reductase is considered to be less androgenic, right? It's considered to be hair friendly. Okay, so I showed a graphic in a previous video where we talked about the rate limiting effect of the conversion of testosterone to estradiol is consequential to the total pool of aromatase enzyme that is available unique to each human being. So in other words, a lot of people tend to be under this misunderstanding that as you raise testosterone more and more and more testosterone, that plausibly estradiol increases in a linear fashion. This is not true. As we raise testosterone serum levels, we certainly see an increase in estradiol levels, but in a rate-limited capacity. What I mean by that, the bottom graphic on the left-hand side here shows that the total testosterone to estrogen ratio actually becomes less and less and less. So as we raise the dose of testosterone, the amount of estrogen which is produced is increased, but the testosterone to estrogen ratio is gradually decreased, and that is consequential to the consumption of the aromatase enzyme pool that's available to us. The same thing is true of DHT. There is a DHT rate limiting factor. In other words, the amount of testosterone that you are capable of producing as a human being is limited by the amount of 5-alpha reductase enzyme that you have, and that is genetically unique. Okay, so as we raise testosterone in the same capacity that, yes, DHT levels grow, you can see that this is very evident in this graphic, but the ratio of testosterone to DHT declines. And what that means is that at some point, as you saturate the available enzyme 5-alpha reductase, less and less and less and less testosterone is able to be converted to DHT. Okay, these statements are not opinion; these statements are fact. Okay, now where people are going to get their wig flipped a little bit here, it is completely plausible if you understand that statement, that any compound that you introduce to this discussion that potentially interacts with the 5-alpha reductase enzyme that is not converted to DHT, and the example is Nandrolone here, is plausibly hair beneficial. Okay, so in other words, if we introduce enough Nandrolone to the picture here, where Nandrolone is acted on by 5-alpha reductase and converted to an enzyme that is not as impactful as DHT, that plausibly lends us to a better hair health framework. Okay, I've never heard anyone, especially the Nandrolone only people, debate that. Right? I've never seen any clinical evidence to say that's true, but I have no reason to doubt that's not the case. It makes logical, rational sense. So we have testosterone as the first molecule. When testosterone is converted by 5-alpha reductase, it becomes more impactful on hair health. When we introduce Nandrolone, when it is impacted on by 5-alpha reductase, it becomes less impactful on hair health. So the pit that's going to flip some people's wigs here is this, and that is, so what happens when we introduce a compound that is not a substrate for 5-alpha reductase? A compound like Masteron, a compound like primobolan. Well, it's very simple, and that is the the androgenic potential of that compound is neither reduced, as it would be in the case of Nandrolone, nor is it increased, as it would be in the case of testosterone. So if you were to create a hypothetical scenario that says, okay, by introducing the drug Nandrolone, we are effectively creating a better hair health profile because we're potentially reducing the amount of DHT that is available. If you follow this framework, then what the fuck happens when we introduce a compound that, when it is acted on 5-alpha reductase, it neither increases nor decreases its androgenic potential? And the answer is, well, plausibly, that is going to be better than just testosterone. Better. And anyone that is following the logic here is suddenly going, holy shit, like, why the fuck do these people think that drugs like Masteron and primobolan and other drugs that are incapable of being converted to DHT, when they interact with a 5-alpha reductase enzyme, there is basically, these drugs are not substrate for that enzyme activity. Okay? So it's actually plausible that using these drugs in a particular filter, that they act as potential DHT blockers. Masteron, primobolan, and effectively any drug, including Nandrolone, any drug that basically produces DHT, okay, through the interaction with 5-alpha reductase at a lower level, okay, at a lower level than testosterone, has to be viewed through the filter of it's plausibly a DHT blocker. In exactly the same way as I made some content earlier that said, well, any drug that is capable of acting with the aromatase enzyme could plausibly be viewed through the filter saying, you know what, any drug that interacts with a aromatase enzyme that doesn't convert to basically, an estradiol at the same rate that testosterone is, you could plausibly put a badge against that and say, well, that's an aromatase inhibitor. Any drug, right, that basically has the potential to disrupt the process of testosterone being converted to DHT because it is effectively consuming the rate-limiting pool of 5-alpha reductase could be, in theory, viewed through the filter of basically being a DHT blocker. So this is, for anyone that's able to follow this discussion, fairly good evidence, right, to say, the fuck are you talking about that Masteron is bad for your hair? Masteron is better for your hair than testosterone because when these drugs interact with a 5-alpha reductase enzyme, they are neither converted into a more androgenic compound, as in the case of testosterone, nor, I completely concede, are they converted into a drug that is less androgenic than the prodrug itself. Okay, so Nandrolone becomes less androgenic, testosterone becomes more androgenic, and all of the other drugs that don't effectively act as a substrate basically don't change their position. The virtue of that fact happening has to basically be viewed through the filter. So these drugs are better for your hair, than testosterone is. Do we have any evidence to support this? Absolutely. We have a number of different studies that we could consider. None is better than the trial where they gave basically 1,050 milligrams of Masteron to women a week, and they gave a 70 milligram dose of methyl testosterone a week to women, and we saw twice the number of women in that study experience hair loss conditions from the 70 milligrams of methyl testosterone than we did women given 15 times the dose of Masteron. Now, lots of people can't get their head around that study. I get it. I understand. Lots of people are not going to be able to get their head around this video. It's going to, as I said, it's going to be too much for them to understand. But if you follow this model, the conversion of estradiol from testosterone, the conversion of DHT from testosterone, both of these processes are rate limited. They are rate limited by the available pool of enzyme. In the case of estradiol, that is the aromatase enzyme. In the case of DHT, that is the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. The amount of enzyme that's available in a genetically unique individual means that the amount of the DHT that you can produce is rate limited. So if you had a scenario whereby you had a DHT-based derivative in presence that was potentially inhibiting the capacity for testosterone to basically be converted into DHT, you have to view that process through the filter of saying, so those drugs are DHT blockers. They are, again, those drugs are DHT blockers. So I'm not even sure that I'm going to answer questions on this video, to be honest with you, because I'm just expecting a shit fight from guys that don't understand the underlying science. I get it. It's probably not worthy of my time going down the rabbit hole with those guys. So I make this content, I put it out there for people who are interested in learning, and I'll see if I don't respond to your comment, I expect you to be a little empathetic here because I am expecting a shit fight. That's it for today's video. I hope you understand that, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Victor Black Masterclass. Sawadee ka.